What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This video here, we have this P-Pump 24 valve 2nd gen Cummins, and we are installing this AFCLive from Power Driven Diesel. So let's get at her. Alright, so when you open the box, here's what you will find. Your AFCLive unit with the hoses going to it, full power switch on the box, a bag of fittings so you can install everything. I got the AFC housing reseal kit for this one. Since it has twins, we got the Ultimate Max Travel kit. Probably use the 45 to 60 spring for it. Also modified foot for the AFC as well. They also send a sticker and also this mount bracket. Alright, first things first, you gotta get your intake horn off. So to do that, this one had a bolt back here holding the harness, dipstick, 2 bolts here, 2 bolts down there, 1 on each side, then the charge pipe obviously. Then this lifts off, then took the grid heater off, so these 2 nuts, this bolt here for this ground, then it came off. And once that stuff is off, you've gained access to the AFC housing. To get the AFC housing off, it's pretty simple as well. So down in here is the AFC housing. This here is your shutdown solenoid. Now there's a bolt on the back of the bracket that holds the shutdown solenoid on. Comes in from the back and stops it from pivoting out. So you take that bolt out, then there are 2 other bolts, one here, one there, and then as well on the other side that hold this other, the rest of the bracket, one there, one there. This boost reference line goes back into the AFC housing here. Take that off, then the whole housing comes out and will look like that. As you can see, for some reason this one here, yeah, that's going to be fun. One of the bolts snapped off. So now after you have the AFC housing off, you can take your fuel plate out. The fuel plate is held in place by these 2 bolts here. You just take those 2 out and it lifts out. Now we take our AFC housing over to the workbench and a vise, and we can install the parts that come with your AFCLive kit in the AFC housing. And those parts would be this foot, goes right here. Also, one of these springs goes in here, and then we have this diaphragm kit that will reseal in here. Since this thing has twin turbos on it, we're probably going to go with the 45 to 60 spring. 30 to 35, 35 to 45, 45 to 60. This thing's probably pushing, it'll probably push about 60 pounds. So we're going to go with the higher pressure spring because this thing has 7x11 injectors, a 600 to 650 cc P7100, and also 63 by a 63 millimeter over an S480 for turbos. So hopefully with this, we'll be able to clean up the smoke, get the EGTs where we want them, and get the power where we want it as well. So let's get this AFC housing in the vise and get taken apart. So once you got the housing and diaphragm off, you take this spring out. This is the factory AFC spring. It controls the tension on the diagram for your fueling. So in here is what they call the star wheel. To access it from outside the pump, you need to take this cap off and then go in the hole down here and get a screwdriver, and then you can ratchet it one way or another. And what that does is move the star wheel back and forth, and that puts more preload on this spring. The more tension on the spring, the more boost the truck needs to see before it'll start fueling. So if you back this spring right off, you'll get full fuel at like 0 psi. So people also call it the smoke screw and stuff like that. So you want to take that out of there, and once that's done, you're going to flip it over to get the AFC foot out of here. So right like that. So this part of the foot goes down in a groove on the shaft that runs through the star wheel. So that controls the fueling. Once that's all out, I'm just going to clean the housing off and get all the oil out of there. So once you got that all done, now we're going to install the modified foot. So I'm going to take this shaft, put it back in. So we're going to install our modified foot from PDD. The leg that jets back goes back towards the AFC housing like so. Kit also comes with a new O-ring for your arm as well. So you can swap that over and it will go back in. So now this here is slotted. You just want to basically center the bolt hole in the slot for it. That's roughly where you want it to be. Once it's pushed in, you can see it'll move. What that does is that offsets the AFC foot. It's best to put it back to where it was originally, but if you didn't make note of it, just center it up there and it should be fine. Once that's done, take your 10mm bolt and put it back in there, lock it in place. So now we got our foot in, everything moves freely, it's set to where it wants to be. So once that is in, we've got to come over to here and go to the star wheel. I already took the plug out, like I said, and crank it in until it bottoms out in the housing, right like so. So to bottom it out in the housing, here is the bolt on the foot that we just put in. You want to thread this star wheel this way, so in toward the foot. And what that does is that moves the star wheel deeper into the bore. So once you choose what spring you're doing out of the Max Travel kit, put it in like so, followed by the small washer, large flat washer that came with the Max Travel kit. That one there, the new diaphragm, the washer that was in the kit or in the pump to begin with, then the waved washer, then the nut. That is done. Once you have that installed, you can reinstall the back cap. It's going to be easier if you take and hold the AFC foot forward, so then the diaphragm will kind of squish down a little bit into the groove it's supposed to go in. Then just reuse the bolts that came out of the housing, tighten those down so it won't pop back up. Once you have them all in, then you can go around and tighten them up. So there's that. So after you have that back together, you want to adjust the pre-boost fuel screw, also known as smoke screw. So back that off. This screw puts some pressure on the rod going through the diagram, which moves the foot, which moves the rack inside the pump. So you can see it starts moving as you turn the screw in and turn it out. If you have this out all the way so it's not putting any pre-fuel in, you can have hard starts, long cranks, stuff like that. But if you put it in too much, it's gonna smoke like a train all the time. So you want it to just start moving. So crank it in while holding the arm or the foot, and you can feel it. It'll just start moving, and that's initial contact. So at initial contact, you want to stop. This truck is pretty heavily modified, so it already has extra fuel and stuff like that for getting it going, so we don't need much pre-boost fuel. So with stock fueling, you'll go a turn and a half past initial contact. But this truck has extra fueling, so we're only going to go a quarter turn. So we're right here now, and we're just going to go like that. We're going to start there. If it has hard starts and stuff like that, then we can always add more fuel to it. But I think it'll be fine. So, since these P-pumps, I just went to tighten this up, and since these pumps are pretty old and just old material, I was snugging the jam nut up and the threads started to pull out of the housing. So now I'm going to have to take this back off and put a 6x1 Healy coil in these threads to fix them. Alright, so we got a Healy coil in here. It's all good now. So back where we were. So there's initial contact right there. And we want to go a quarter turn. So there's a quarter turn. There. That's all set. Now, for the PDD springs, you can leave the star wheel backed right off. With the stock spring, if you're just using that, you have to thread the star wheel in a little wee bit to put some preload on the spring. The PDD springs are a little bit longer, so you don't have to do any of that. So you just put our cap back in. She's ready to go back on. Alright guys, so we got our bolt out and got our AFC housing back on. Now when putting this on, there's also a slide adjustment for pre-boost fueling as well as the screw on the back. So if you slide this forward towards the front of the engine, then it will fuel harder before boost, so you'll get like some smoky accelerations and stuff like that. If you slide it back, you will get less pre-boost fuel, so you could get some hard starts and stuff like that. So it's recommended to put this 25% of the way forward and then tighten her down there. And now we're ready to mount the controller inside the cab. So I already got that done. We'll see how she is. There she is. It's a little dark in this cab. There she is, all mounted up. There is a bracket that comes with it, and there are two screws that you just screw into the trim. I decided to mount this under the brake controller because if I put it on this panel here, then that's the kick panel, and it'll be a pain in the butt to get the kick panel in and out. So after you have that mounted, you want to route your lines through the firewall. This truck already has a bunch of accessories on it, so the hole in the firewall was already there. I just routed the lines through an existing hole for some other accessories. Now, for the AFC, there are two different lines. One line, the instruction says, has a white tape mark on it, but this one had a green tape on it. That has to go to the head. So I ran them out. So I ran the lines out up back here. I'm gonna zip tie all this back up how it was. And then this line that had the tape on it goes to the head, which is right here. The other line needs to go in this QVV valve, and this is directional. There is a white mark on the one end, and that needs to go towards the AFC housing, because you can see there's an arrow as well, and boost flows this way. So after that's in, I just gotta zip tie all that up, put the intake horn back on. So there we go, guys. Got our AFCLive installed. Our lines are fastened up along the firewall here. And our controller is all tucked up in here. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this video on how to install AFCLive. Next video, we'll be getting this baby on the dyno to clean up the smoke and give us maximum power that we can get out of it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.